My name is Nick Olsen. I work at PredictWind, and I've been here for about 6 years. I'm a sailor. I've sailed since I was 6 years old. Most of the people that work at PredictWind are sailors. So some of the, if any of you have dealt with our support team, you have probably dealt with some pretty experienced sailors. There's 4 of them are ex-Volvo Ocean Race sailors, and some of them have done it more than once, and so they definitely understand what it's like to be out there, and very knowledgeable people. I'm not quite that accomplished in the offshore sailing department, but I do a lot of I do quite a lot of two-handed sailing, and recently did a 1,300 nautical mile two-handed race around the North Island of New Zealand, and that was really good. That was just before we had our COVID lockdown in New Zealand. We did that, and that was really good because I got to sort of reuse the PredictWind tools in anger. I was on Iridium Go the whole time. So that was good for me to get out there and sort of refresh myself in the real world. And just a little bit about PredictWind. PredictWind was started by John Bilger 11 years ago, and he was involved in the America's Cup, and he was the head weatherman for Lingy for their America's Cup challenges for the Swiss team. They won twice, and in that time they did a lot of weather model development, and from that development John decided that he would start a weather company, and that's sort of the very short version of where PredictWind came from. He quickly learned that it's about delivery. You can have the best data, but delivery is to people with the forecast is actually really what matters. So we spend a lot of time and effort working on our product. Is the question from Kirk before about something we'd changed this week. We're always working on it. That's actually, the question that Kirk had was a mistake, and so of something that we did when we were doing an update. Okay, so I'll keep talking a little bit more. Actually, no, I'll share my screen. Okay. Always much more comfortable when I've got a weather map, or in this case, a wind map in front of me. So I'll quickly start, and I'll talk about weather models. And here I'm on the PredictWind website, which you can use it at home or anywhere you're on a computer. It's basically the same functionality as the PredictWind app that you would use on your phone or your tablet, but this product, the website and the PredictWind app, they're for when you are in port or at home or in the harbour. As soon as we do the sort of trip that you guys are looking at doing tomorrow, we switch over to the Offshore App, and that's because that product is designed to save all of your data when you're offline, and designed to work with satellite comms and SSB, and basically any sort of connection. It also works on a web connection, but the key thing there with the Offshore App, which we will go and have a look at in a little bit, is that it saves your data when you're offline. So when you go out of cell coverage. So yeah, you download everything before you leave, or if you've got a satellite connection, you can get more information on the way. So yeah, I've got the wind map here. I don't really want to get too far into this side of PredictWind today. I really want to talk about the coastal routing. What I did want to talk about though was the weather models that we have. You'll see down the bottom of the screen here, I have the PWG so what we're looking at here on the split screen is actually 2 different weather models. And on one side, on this left-hand side, I have the PWG model, and on the right-hand side, I have the PWE model. So they are the models that we run. We run them twice a day. And we run them at what's probably of note and interest to you guys is that we run them at high resolution. So I can look at that at 8K resolution, and then I can also look at it at 1 kilometer resolution. And what that means is that it's a finer granularity of the model. So the 1 kilometer resolution here, it's going to pick up all sorts of different land effects, thermal effects, but it only runs out to 36 hours from runtime. So really we see about 24 hours of forecast in the 1 kilometer area. And if I zoom out, oh, it's going to change resolution on me. The 1 kilometer blocks are quite small, and so then there'll be another block up the coast and another block. The 1 kilometer resolution modeling takes more computing power than the 8 and the 50K put together. But they can be very good for your short-term forecasting. They'll often outperform the ECMWF, which is considered to be the #1 weather model in the world. And I'll just flick over to that on the screen over here. But the ECMWF's at 9K, so our models at 1K can pick up more local effects and heating sort of effects than what a global model can, like the ECMWF. But longer term, the EC is very good. And then we have, thanks to NOAA, we have the GFS, which is very widely used. I'll need to go to 50K to see that. I'm not a massive GFS fan, mainly because of its resolution. It's only displayed at 27K. We're looking at a 50K here. Yeah, for where I live in my part of the world, I don't find it performs particularly well, but it is the sort of the reference that everyone uses. You'll see that weather model in lots of free weather apps, and the reason is that it's free to get, probably thanks to your taxpayer money. The ECMWF, on the other hand, you'll see that less frequently. It is the #1 weather model in the world. It costs us a lot of money to buy that data, but it is very, very good and well worth it. So yeah, I could probably talk about weather models for an hour or so. But if you do have any questions about modelling, you can ask our support team, or that we do have information about that in our help centre about explaining about the models. One other thing that I'll quickly mention before we move on is something that's really important is forecast update times. So, excuse me. So our weather models, well, all the weather models have just updated. So at 14 hours ago, or there was a snapshot taken of the whole world by NOAA and ECMWF, and that snapshot of the world then gets processed into a data file, and that real-time observation then goes into the weather model, and takes about 7 hours to produce a forecast that you see here. So, or 6-7 hours, depending on the model. But you'll see up the top of my screen here, if I hover over that, you'll see that all the models are going to be updated in 10 hours and 45 minutes. So that means they updated an hour and a quarter ago. And you can see, oh no, I can't wait. You can if you have it's worth having a look at that and understanding when the update times are. But the ECMWF is the last one to update, and that updated today in your time at 3 o'clock, at 10 past 3. So that's really important to know, because then you can be out there and you can be like, oh, it's 3 o'clock or 3:30. I'm gonna get the new forecast, because getting the latest weather data is really good. I mean, it's had new initial conditions go into it. It's been rerun, and it's a fresh forecast. So that update time is really important, especially with when you're doing passages. So yeah, take note of that. What you can also see is that the GFS and the PWG update a lot earlier, a couple of hours earlier. So if you were desperate for some new weather, you could do an update, a weather update, and you could know that the PWG and the GFS had updated, but the PWE and the SMWF are slower. But you can, yeah, by 3 o'clock Eastern time, they're all updated. So that's important, really important information to know. So does that sort of making any sense to you, Hank?
Yeah, so far so good, Nick.
Yep, no, that's cool. It's early in the morning for me, so I'm hopefully not rambling too much. Okay, so we'll get into what we're really here to talk about, which is some weather routing, and we'll quickly have a look on the web version. So you can do this in the PredictWind app on our website, or in the Offshore app. You can do weather routing. The best place to do it is in the Offshore app, but we'll just have a quick look in here. And so I'm going to move these two little markers. So the green one here is where I want to start from, and the red one is where I want to end up. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to run a departure plan, and just move those points. I'm going to be a bit rough with my start and finish, but setting them outside the bay there is probably a good thing. And yeah, I've got the time, the start time at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I could change that to now. I changed the time on that just before. And I can change my departure spacing. So because you guys are looking at tomorrow, let's just put them 2 hours apart, just so that we can have a look at if different people are heading out at different times. And I can, oh no, what's happened? I've broken something. What have I done? Let's have another go. I could have put the date in wrong. So just so everyone knows that this is this loading here, it's probably a good time for me to explain what's going on there. So how PredictWind works, and whether you're offshore or whether you're on your computer at home, is that your account has your polars, and I'll talk about polars quickly in a second. Polars are your boat's performance, how fast we expect your boat to go, or slow we expect your boat to go. And what that does is when I did that calculation there, that's saying, oh, it's Nick and he's got whatever my boat is today, and it knows all the things I want to do, and it's calculating that on our servers. And when it calculates that on our servers, it's going to use the highest resolution forecast it can. It's going to be using ocean currents, and it's calculating every possible option for a route. So it takes about 40 seconds for it to do that, but it's probably worth appreciating the amount of information that's being crunched there. I'm actually just we've just updated our router, and I'm just trying to get from the guy that the developer, I'm trying to get the actual number of calculations that go into each route, but apparently it's a very big number. So what I've done here is I've run a departure plan, and it was asked before about the boats leaving, and as you can see, we only get one boat leaving, and what we should be getting is a bunch of boats leaving, so that we can see what happens at the different times. But to be fair, the real tool in the departure planning isn't this map. It is nice that we can see, even if whichever time we depart tomorrow, whether we departed at 10, 12, 2 or 4, that the routes don't change massively. the router's not expecting us to do different things. But what I need to do is really, this is the real tool here, is the tables, and it's because the departure planning tool should really be used as a summary. And it looks like you guys are going to be in for a good trip. So 10 o'clock outside the bay there tomorrow, and we've got 90 and around 90% downwind and a tiny bit upwind. But even if you leave later in the day, up to 2 o'clock, you still end up, your trip still has a large percentage of downwind sailing. You can see if you leave in the evening or at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that percentage starts to change. So you must end up in a slightly different weather pattern if you leave later in the day. So this is a really valuable tool. It's good for working out your departure time. I know that you guys have Chris Parker helping you, and that's awesome. And what I would suggest to you is, in a rally like this, when you do have someone like that helping you, is that you take the information that he gives you, and then you go and use our tools, and you sort of validate what he's saying. So, and go, okay, he thinks that we should leave then, or, that there's going to be this weather come then, go, later in the day or whatever, go and get a weather out, look at the forecast, look at the departure planning, do all that stuff, and begin to understand what he's saying, and visualize it in here, and learn for yourself. It's sort of an analogy I could give is, pre-cooked meals are great, but at some stage you're going to need to learn how to cook, and we sort of give you the kitchen and all the tools to cook, but you got to learn how to cook. So, and I'm sure we all like home cooked meals better. Anyhow, I won't linger on the departure planner for too much longer, but the polars that I have set up, we'll go into that in a second, they're for a Beneteau 40.7. So you can just see here, so the maximum, these are the wind speeds, its maximum wind speeds are around 20 knots, and the minimum wind speed is, reasonably low. 3.5 is the lowest that we see there, but to 8. Important to note, when you're looking at these results, these are averages. They are wind speed averages. So gusts of a 20 knot average there. We see that in that model quite a bit. Gusts could be 30-40% higher. So that's when you look at this stuff and you go, oh, that forecast was wrong. We saw 30 knots. You might do, because these are averages, average wind speeds, and gusts can definitely be more. We have got a gust map, so you can have a look at the gust map and see that. Okay, so I am going to flick over to the weather routing tool, and I think the main thing we will do here, so once you've worked out which time you're going to depart, then you come and run a weather route. And I briefly mentioned a couple of times about polars, and so I've gone into my routing preferences here, and I can choose which sort of boat I've got if I'm on the list. If your boat isn't on the list, I would choose one that is similar to what you have. What kind of boat do you have, Hank?
Katana 471.
Don't have one. What about a 50?
Predates. Well, it's faster than a 50. I mean, that's not going to be a good comparison.
How much faster?
5 to 7%. But it's the 50 was built heavier, but that's okay.
Okay.
Reasonable.
So just for Hank, so I've put a Katana 50 in there, and I can actually put a percentage on that. I could say that it's 7% faster, and I could put 107% in there, and so therefore the router will assume that I go faster. I can also turn on the motoring option. So if the wind speed gets in less than 6 knots, I'm going to flick my motor on and I'm going to head towards the goal. So there are other options there. If you had a powerboat, you can use powerboat options. If your boat isn't in there, you don't feel there's anything that represents what you've got, you can actually just put these basic polars in, which is essentially your maximum speed, and then we scale it down from there. For anyone that wants to get tricky, you can put your advanced polars in. So if I flick on that, you'll see these are the polars from the race boat that I sail two-handed. So, but anyway, let's go back to that. We've got a Katana 50 in there, and we're going to put it at 107%. Another option here that I could do is I could put on a comfort setting that will make the router try and avoid certain conditions. So for wave heights and a maximum wind speed, it can be very good, but just be aware that it will try pretty hard to avoid those conditions. So if you set that quite low, it's going to send you all over the ocean to get there when you could have just weathered out a couple of hours and 30 knots. So yeah, I don't use that myself. I just want to know what the fastest route is, and then I'll use seamanship to, if I want to avoid something, I'll look at the weather and avoid something if I want to, or change my plans. So yeah, we've got our polars set up there, and if I run a weather route, and so this time I'm going to get the 4 weather models. It'll calculate the route for all 4 weather models. So in the PredictWind models, because I have a professional subscription, it will be using, where it can, it will use the 1 kilometer resolution models to calculate my route, and then the 8K when it goes outside of those areas. The ECMWF, it's using the 9K, and the GFS, it is using the 27K resolution. So this is nice because what I see here is I see the routes doing a similar thing. So I don't need to press play. I can just look at the routes and I can go, okay, I've got 4 different weather models here. And if I leave at 10 o'clock tomorrow, there is not a big difference in where those routes want me to go. They, we're not miles off the run line, but we are taking some weather into account. Oops. And I'll just quickly play that so that we can have a look. And you'll see the boat is moving along the blue line. And the reason it's moving along the blue line is I've got the PWG weather model selected down here on the left. And so that's why there's so this is the question before about there being 1 boat. So there is 1 boat. I won the argument yesterday to get a white dot on the other models, just so that we can reference the time scale on the other models. Before we had 4 boats, and people were getting confused at which route they were looking at. So that's why the boats disappeared. But if I change over to another model, it'll load that model, and it's hard to tell because the routes are so similar, but you'll see it's following the black route. And I could go into the tables and I can look at, we can look at gusts. Let's just quickly look at that. You can see when we flick the gusts on there that we get a pretty different looking picture. So that's tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, you got 17 knot average, 21 knot gusts. So it'll be a good sail. You can see out here further out to sea, we've got quite a bit more breeze, 33 knot gusts, 25 knot averages. Must be reasonably stable because we haven't got a big difference between our gusts and the averages. So that's a good thing. So there's a bunch of parameters in there. What we should probably do, I'm really keen to flick over to the Offshore App, just so we can run through that. Before we do, we will really quickly just have a look at the wave modeling, just because you guys have had had a bit of weather go through. We'll just make sure that we don't have any crazy wave action, but it doesn't really look that way. You know, that's 1.6 meters. Quite a short period of just under 6 seconds. So, but you're going with it. Yeah. Cool. So I'm just going to stop sharing that for a second and just have a look at the questions that we had before. Yes, the European model is updated every 12 hours at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. That's correct. So yeah, I'll just have a quick drink of water. Anything that you sort of want me to focus? We're basically going to go through a similar sort of process, but now we're going to do that in the Offshore app. Is there anything in particular that you want me to touch on there, Hank?
Well, I was just interested in the ability to do updating of the routing when you're offshore, and I think that's what you're going to get into with the Offshore app. I think that's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll get into that now. Okay. Might make me a bit less drony, bit of water. Okay, so I am going to change screens. Excuse me. And I am going to flick over to the Offshore app. As you can see, I ran a route earlier. So this, if you have a look at this, you'll see, oh, it's the same, but it's not the same. We've got a different layout. We've got the, different stuff over here, and but essentially much of the same stuff. But this is the Offshore app. So you can use the Offshore app on your laptop, so a Mac or a PC laptop. It actually also works on a Chromebook, or on this is my iPad that I take when I go sailing, and it's in a waterproof case so that I can have it up on deck. And obviously, I sail a 35-foot boat two-handed. We get pretty wet. We sleep in our wet weather gear and on the floor, and the iPad gets a pretty hard time. But really cool being able to use that. Especially when you get tired. When I was doing the Round North Island race, the guy that I sailed with, he gets seasick sometimes. We went around the top of New Zealand and he was seasick, and we were doing hour on hour off shifts, and it was really cool. After I knew when the forecasts were updated, and the most I could do as the boat was sort of pounding over these waves sailing upwind was that I could just move my green start point and press download, and it did everything for me. I didn't need to download a bunch, change any settings. It was already all set up. I just needed to move the start point to where I was, and it was already connected to my Iridium Go, and it just downloaded. And that was pretty cool. Just being able to do that so simply. So just zoom out a little bit. So we've got the same general premise here. We've got our start point and our finish point. And what I mean by what I was talking about just then is, let's say tomorrow afternoon you're here, and so then you run another weather route. And what Hank just touched on is that if I've got any satellite connection, or any real satellite connection, not a text-based short burst data type thing, which is an inReach. They can't run gribs and get weather outs on here. But an Iridium Go, an Iridium phone that you can email off, or if you had an optimizer on it that could connect, or if you've got a more high-end system, you can update. Also, SSB, you can, if you can email, you can send an email request and update this data. So let's say that we have where are we going to be? Oh, let's get to the right time. And I've got my start time on this the next day. So anyway, let's pretend that we're there tomorrow afternoon, that 3:30 tomorrow afternoon we're here. We haven't got any, you might have a booster maybe, and maybe, I don't know how, whether you, I'm not familiar with the coverage down here, but maybe you can get something, or maybe you've got SATCOMs and you can update your weather route. So we move our start point to wherever we are. Up here, we can, I just need to move this Zoom box. Oh, no, it's still over it. So up here, we can enter the lat long of our start point. If I move that, you'll see the lat long changes up there in the right. So we could take that position off our off a chart plotter, or I'd often take it off my iPad. If I've got my Iridium Go, it shows a little white dot, and I can just move the green start point to my little white dot. Just move that back. Just moving Hank and I out the way. So I've gone to there, and I have whatever connection I'm on, I've connected to that Wi-Fi, or I've plugged my sat phone into my computer, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to press download. And what you'll see here is these are all the things that I can download, and because I'm going to pretend I'm on an Iridium Go connection, and I'm not going to be able to get these high resolution grids because they'll be too big for my file. I'll get the observations, but here, these are my offshore grid preferences, and I'm just going to change some of these things. I mean, we're doing a short trip, so I don't need 8 days of models. I can just get 3 days of models. I've got 50K resolution for my grid. So really important thing here. This is probably a really big point of difference between what PredictWind does and any other software like this does, is that we which I said before, we calculate your route on our servers. So we send this tiny little packet of information to our servers, and they do the calculation. The grids that I'm getting here are just for me to visualize against my weather route, which has used all that high resolution data, which is available to me here up the coast. So yeah, but I can't download those big files, those big high resolution files on my Iridium Go connection. But my weather route has been calculated with the high resolution files. So I'm going to take a bunch of the stuff off, but I want the wind, I want the pressure, I'm going to get the rain. The reason I'm going to get the rain is if there was a frontal band coming through. I haven't looked at this enough to know whether there is or not, but the rain would indicate to me where the frontal band was. Wave, we just looked at the wave. I'm pretty confident with that, so I might just take that off. It's not a biggie for me to have that, or but yeah, certain times you might 100% want to get the wave. I want the gust because I want to see whether we're getting any big gusts coming through, and I'm going to keep the cape on, and that's just so that I can just keep an eye if there's any potential for thunderstorm type activity. So I want to have a look at that. So I'm going to leave the observations on so that I can see what's happening on the coast. I'm going to turn the ocean data off. I don't, looking at our routing that we ran before and our departure plans, it doesn't look like we're getting far enough out to sea to get into the Gulf Stream. So we and we know that the Gulf Stream's heading north. So which is with this wind direction, that's a good thing, because with any current that we did encounter should be going with the wind. So you can see there that this little box down the bottom here, that's dramatically changed my file size. So that is a a file that would be an easy download over Iridium Go. You'll see if I turn this, if I just flick that ocean data back on, we go from kilobytes to megabytes. So, you know, much bigger file. The beauty of the ocean data is that it doesn't change super quickly. So I can download that ocean data before I leave, and it's relevant for my trip. So I can go and have a look at it if I want to. Turn that off again. And then I'm going to click next. And you see in here, I've got my start time. What is the date? Should be the 11th. Got my start time. I can change that to now or a time in the future. And we've got, I can choose whether I do weather routing, departure planning, and destination spot forecast. The destination spot forecast is just for when I'm at a spot that I can't use the PredictWind app, and I want to get a forecast for that location. Say I'm in a remote anchorage, I can just get the forecast for that spot. It's a nice little tool. GMDSS, I'm going to get that. So that's a written text forecast by a meteorologist that will give me a heads up for any warnings, anything that I might not pick up in the grids, that the grids aren't going to show me. So it's written by a meteorologist at NOAA for this area, and it's a tiny little file and well worth getting. Satellite imagery, I'm not going to get that, and I'm not going to get the YB tracking. Anyone that's had it set up, you can get the GPS tracking, and that would mean I would be able to see anyone else that's on the rally that's got GPS tracking. I'll be able to see them in the Offshore App, so I can get that information. I can see who's around me. I can see who that is up over there. You know, I might be able to see a boat in the distance, wonder who it is. I can get that data while I'm offshore. So you can see we're down to 78.2 kilobytes. That's a walk in the park for the Iridium. Yeah, really nice small file size. Then I just click on next again, and this is my downloads page. And in here, I can see what size, estimated size, all these files are. And up the top here, I could click on my different connection types. If I wanted to send an email, this is where I create the email request to send away. I can press save there. It'll save it to my desktop, and then I go, if I'm using an SSB, I can then send that request off in my email as an attachment, and it will, a couple of minutes later, I can do a send and receive again, and I'll get that file back and be able to put it into the Offshore App. So we'll just go back to the web connection. So this is, you make sure you choose the right one there. Yeah, it can be a bit of a trick if you're wondering why it's not working. And anyway, we're going to do the web, and you'll just see these things will download pretty quickly. And what you'll see there again is that the weather out it's sent that request off, but it's crunching that data on our servers. But it's only 6 kilobytes, and it's probably come back at about 8 or between 6 and 8. I think it will come back. But yeah, so everything else is downloaded, but we're just waiting for that weather out to do the millions of calculations or whatever it's doing, and come back to us. So yeah, I'll have another drink of water while that's happening. Okay, it was a short route, so it was 2 kilobytes. So in that 2 kilobytes, I've probably had, I don't know, for this route, maybe 30 megabytes of data have probably gone into creating this weather route. So it's a very cool feature that you can do that. So you'll see that it's opened up in the tables here. I'm not a big graphs fan, but I can have a look through there and I can sort of see that where the wind's peaking and the comparison of the models. You can see our wave height goes up a bit there. I'm pretty into this sort of thing. I like my tables. We've got a bunch more parameters about to go into this. It's going to tell you if I didn't turn the motoring options on, but I could have turned them on, and it would tell me how long I've motored for in this trip or not. But you can see the true wind speeds, true wind angles, speed over ground, course over ground. This is a good place to come and have a look if you've set up some polars and you want to see if the speed over ground. You can look at the wind speed and the true wind angle and go, does my boat go this fast? Because this is what the router thinks you're doing, and having your polars close to what you actually do is really important, because that changes the timing of when you encounter different systems. So is this how fast your boat goes, Hank?
That's reasonably, it's in the ballpark. I mean, at times will be, 10 to 11 and a half, you get, beam reaching, but,
sure.
It looked like we were getting most of the wind, well after the beam on this trip.
It looks pretty aft, doesn't it? And when you look at those true wind angles across all the models.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's very reasonable.
Cool. Yeah. And so we can go to our summary again, and this is, for the different models, and we can see that, the ECMWF's got us going downwind the whole way. With the max wind speed is still in the 20s, and the minimum wind speed is 10 to 12. So shouldn't be too slow. And another good thing to look at here is your average speed. I mean, as Hank says, sometimes you go faster, sometimes you go slower, but having this average speed, once you sail your boat a bit, you know what your average speeds are. This is a downwind trip, so it's probably quite realistic that you could do that. So yeah, we've got a bunch of other things that we can look at here. We've got the wave height, we've got the current, and I'm just going to move myself again. The reason that there's nothing in there is because we're so close to the coast. It's not picking up anything in the ocean current. So that's not saying that there's not tidal effects there. It doesn't pick up the tidal effects. But the other thing here that I probably should mention is that I can export this. So if I was on my iPad, for instance, and I had Navionics or iSailor or whatever you use as a navigation tool on your iPad, I could click on export, and I could export the weather route into my navigation software. So that's a pretty cool thing to do. That was something that I do a lot. But before I did that, I would go and have a look at the weather route, and I feel like I've got the timing all wrong, but anyway, that doesn't matter for what I'm talking about today. But yeah, you can see why it says it's you can see the wind angle there. It's essentially a rumline route. All the models are in agreement, and that makes us happy, because that gives us, if I saw, I'll put my mouse on the screen. If I saw like one or two of these routes coming way out here, I would want to know what was going on. I would want to know why those weather routes were wanting me to do something different, and that would give me less confidence in the forecast, because if two of them were going out there and two of them going down here, I'd be like, well, something weird's happening. So I'd want to look at what the situation was. Why did these ones want me to go out here? What weather effect is it that what makes them want to go out here? If it was a wind speed thing, then I would look at which model was related most closely to what I had at the moment and what I'd been having, and so which was why I got some observations. And yeah, a bunch of these boys don't deliver data very often, but they do deliver data. That one's not delivering any. But yeah, along the coast here, we've got lots of observations, and we can see what's going on in real time, which is that's actually a pretty new thing for us to be able to see these observations in the Offshore App. We've always had them in the PredictWind app and on the website, but being able to see them in the Offshore App is it's pretty powerful. Really great to know what's actually happening. There is plans to get ship data in there, so for any ships that are in the area, and that will also be really valuable. So it's interesting there that we can see it's offshore down here and inshore down there. I wonder if that system's just moving up the coast there. I mentioned before the GMDSS forecast. Now, it takes a while to work out which part of the world is relevant to you, but it is worth taking the time, having a look through, and finding out which bit relates to where you are. I mean, I'll close that again. Well, let's just quickly have a look at some of the text. Yeah, it's got a boundary there, but it just this is written by a meteorologist. It tells you, stuff that's going on. Caribbean, it's covering a huge area, but
yeah, a little above that, it had an advisory on Tropical Storm Faye, and that's what's moving by up the coast. In fact, it was right at the top of the.
Was it?
Yeah, the forecast. If you scroll all the way back up to the top.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Tropical Storm Faye, advisory number 5.
Yeah, so that's why you would get this, is so that you can. I mean, it's pretty clear what's going on with that in the models, and the models are all in agreement with what's going on with it as well. But if you're out at sea and there was something developing, this is where you're going to find out about it. So yeah, well worth having a look at the GMDSS. It's tiny little file. As you can see, this is the area it's covering, so a huge area, and that's why it's a big long document. But there is anything relevant to where you are will be noted. So, I don't know whether I've got any ocean data in there. No, I don't, because we didn't download any. So I mentioned the tracking before. I'm not in any particular group other than one that we've been playing around with a couple of my colleagues. But so I've just downloaded the weather route, the tracking. So that's showing my track from around the North Island, and but if I'd put myself, I probably should have put myself in your rally, or there's actually a rally going across the Atlantic at the moment. I probably should have put myself in there so that you could have seen all the other boats. Any of you that did the Homeward Bound flotilla, you would have, hopefully you would have had a look at the tracking page we did there. You can get that same information in the Offshore App, so you can see where your boats, where other boats are. Another thing to note on the GPS tracking is that you can actually set up your own group. So if there's 2 or 3 of you that are doing the same trip, you can go into your PredictWind account and you can go search for boats near me. Why don't I go and have a look? Let's stop sharing this, because I'll just check the time. Oh yeah, I'm really going on, aren't I? Okay, I'll wrap this up pretty quick. And feel free to fire in any questions that you've got there. Oh yeah, there is questions. And
Nick, this is Hank. Yeah, I'm going to have to sign off. I've got another activity to go to, but defer to others and their questions. So thank you
Yeah.
for doing this.
Cool. Okay, I will actually wrap this up really quickly. I will go through the I'll go through the questions and and wrap this up. Thanks very much, Hank, and we'll talk again.
Right? Yeah, we need to. We'll see you. Take care.
Cheers. Okay, so I've just got some questions here. What is the length of time incorporated into the average wind speed calculations? It's a 10-second average, I believe, but it's I would need to check on that. But that's my understanding off the top of my head, early in the morning. So does one need a professional subscription to get the Gulfstream information? To visualize the grids and to visualize all the Gulfstream stuff, yes you do, but the calculation is taken into account in the routing on the standard subscription. What does CAPE stand for? Convective Available Potential Energy. We have a good article on that in our news section on the PredictWind website. Well worth a read. Probably explains it better than what I can. But I'll just... I will go back to the Offshore app just quickly and just... We got the CAPE. So you see here in the CAPE, okay, so you guys might want to be aware of that. When's this? Yeah, so this here, these are high CAPE levels. Basically, it is one indicator of thunderstorm type activity. It's a heads up. It's a be aware type piece of information. But yeah, have a look at that. You can look at the CAPE in the PredictWind app. Have a look at that and just see, because there's there are definitely CAPE levels that would spark interest to me. So that if you know that there's high CAPE levels and you see some big nasty black clouds rolling towards you, I would be reducing sail before they got to you, because there's a good chance if you've got high CAPE levels like this and you've got some nasty cloud coming towards you, you might have a pretty nasty squall or similar coming your way. So yeah, it's definitely a be aware type piece of information. And I will stop sharing that. I'm not trying to scare anyone there, but just be aware. So we are in the middle of adding, so Chuck has asked about adding polars for your boat. We will add, if you have polars for your boat that we don't have in our list, we will add them. So if you can provide us with the table formats of the table format of the polars, we will add them if it's a production boat like a Lagoon 42. So they are going in there. I've seen that. That just got to wait for one of the developers to check them in, put them in there. And yeah, that's all the questions for the moment. If you have any questions, please ask our support team. They are, as I said at the start, they're very knowledgeable and they are there to help you. Probably don't ask too many today because I'm on the support desk today. It's my Saturday. So I'll have a pretty busy day. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for taking the time to come and watch this, and I hope that you've learned something. And as I say, please feel free to ask us any more questions. So thank you very much.